This is the Heroes Podcast. I'm back again with Rick DellaRatta. How are you?
Very good, Andre. Great to be with you today.
Thanks for joining me. And before we jump into your story, I wanted to introduce you so everyone knows who we are meeting here today. Long known as one of the world's finest jazz pianists, Rick DellaRatta also began to receive major recognition as a composer when his symphonic piece Permutata was recorded by the London Symphony Orchestra at the Beatles' famed Abbey Rd studios in 1999. And as a unique and important vocalist in 2004, when he was included in a definitive listing of the greatest jazz singers of all time, in Scott Yanow's book, Jazz Singers, through his lifelong endeavor to help advance people to their highest potential, through the understanding of jazz, as well as spreading peace worldwide through his Jazz for Peace tour. I love that. I want to know everything about that later. So Rick is considered to be an innovator, a visionary, and designation that became known by many when he was included by the Foundation Center in their list of the top musicians, philanthropists of our time, along with U2, Bono, Elton John, Peter Gabriel, and Sting. Wow, I didn't know these things. Do you want to take us back to maybe to the beginning, to the hardest parts of your lives, if you want to?
Sure. Well, I mean, do you want me to go to the beginning of Jazz for Peace or the beginning of my musical journey?
Look,
Doesn't
it's
matter.
up to you. And I know you have an instrument right on your left. So when
I have an
feel like you could just let your fingers make magic.
I can do all that. So my musical journey actually started for me on Christmas Day, and that is because I woke up after trying to catch Santa Claus coming in, and my parents didn't want me to stay up and try to catch him. And I was upstairs and I was peeking around. I noticed something crazy going on in the front of my, on the front of the house. And something was coming in, and there was a very big person at the back of it. And I assumed, based on the pictures I had seen of Santa Claus, that this was Santa himself coming in. And I did not want to get caught by my parents because they had really been adamant about me, because I'd been trying to do this for the last couple of years, and they had really been adamant that he's not going to come unless you go to sleep, whatever. They did not want me doing this. So I was like, okay, I better cut my losses here. I got Santa. He's coming. He's bringing something in the front door. I don't know why. It turned out to be a piano. So if you want, I'll do a musical rendition of my very first day. And this is a song called Santa Claus is Coming to Town, but I'm going to do a jazz rendition of it.
Go for it. Ooh, Rick. I think we are in trouble.
What? Oh, you know what I have to do? I have to do this. I'm so sorry. I have to do this. Okay. I've clicked on something and now we can record it. Okay, so you should get a better sound now. You better watch out, you better not cry, better not pout, I'm telling you why. Santa Claus is coming to town. He's making a list, he's checking it twice, gonna find out who's naughty or nice. Santa Claus is coming to town. He sees you when you're sleeping, he knows when you're awake, he knows when you've been bad or good, so better not shout, you better not cry. I'm telling you why. Santa Claus is coming. Santa Claus is coming. Santa Claus is coming to town.
What an intro. I loved it.
Yeah, so that was my first day of music because, you know, it was Christmas Day. Here's this big thing Santa brought in. And I felt like it would just be really disrespectful after he went through all that trouble to bring this thing in to not know what it is, not figure it out, not go up. So I started sneaking up to it when nobody was around, when people were in the other room, everyone's maybe celebrating somewhere else. Whenever I thought nobody was going to catch me, I went up and started basically improvising. I was just trying to figure this thing out all by myself secretly. I didn't want anyone to know. It was me and the piano. And I just figured I'll figure this out one way or the other. And then, of course, one thing led to another that led to another, similar to what happened when Jazz for Peace started. It started out as a poem written on 9/11, watching the events in New York City from the rooftop of a building less than a quarter of a mile away. Words came out, and one thing led to another after another. So it was the same sort of thing. Christmas Day, Santa Claus, one thing after another. So the next thing was, you know, my mother, somebody told on me probably, and my mother may have heard me, who knows, but I ended up in music lessons because my mother like asked me if I want to take music lessons. I said, nah, I'm good. I got this thing. I got it. But then all of a sudden she was picking me up from school and driving me to a music teacher. So I had my own, still had my own research that I was doing on this thing. And then I had a music teacher teaching me classical music. And then I also noticed that the kids in school, one of them being me, myself, loved the music on the radio, the pop songs. So I had three things going on at once. And then I ran into jazz in a library. I don't know what the heck, our class was in there, and I opened some kind of a drawer by accident or just out of curious. And I ended up seeing all these jazz records, and I started taking them out of the library. And so I really had my hands full. And the next thing you know, people were asking me to play in this or that. You know, my homeroom teacher had, his sons were in a band and wanted me to play in the school dances. There was a grown-ups found out about me, and they were like, approached my mother and said, look, can we, you know, we'll pick him up, we'll take him home, don't worry, he won't get in trouble, we'll sneak him in and out of the clubs. I was underage. And, you know, I started playing with the grown-ups in their band. And then my mother was a church organist, and she asked me to take over in the church from there. So then I had to quit my job. My only job that I ever had was as a paper boy. So I quit my paper route because I had too much music going on, and it's been all music from there until Jazz for Peace on 9/11, because now I really got myself into hot water with this poem I wrote that I started to try to live up to the words of the poem. And that turned out to be like a Pandora's box, you know what I mean? I started to just find out, hey, you know, there is alternative measures to solving our world's problems, and the arts and culture holds the key. Whether we know it or not, I mean, I know it, but whether the world knows it or not is another ballgame. But the arts and culture holds the key because of its ability to peacefully communicate with anybody on an optimum level of consciousness. You know what I mean? So that put me on a major journey that I'm still on, because you know, every day I basically wake up and try to live up to the words of a poem I wrote on 9/11.
Oh, wow. And what I've heard that you had a love affair with the piano. That's how it all started. What did you experience? Like, I understood you had been experimenting with the piano. Did you find the music teacher was teaching you things that you needed?
Well, here's the problem. I didn't really want the extra baggage of piano lessons because you got to practice and you got to study. But when I saw who I was dealing with, you know, people like Mozart, people like Chopin, people like Beethoven, you know, and I'm Bach, and I'm reading this music and I'm learning this music. These are not people you can turn your back on. I mean, I can't walk away. You can't walk away from improvisers of that magnitude. I mean, they were improvisers too. I mean, Bach was a phenomenal improviser, you know, and anyone who saw the movie Amadeus knows that, you know, Mozart was just, could make up anything from anything, kind of a genius, kind of a, you know, improviser as well. And they all, you know, it was jazz. It was the same thing. I mean, all of contemporary music comes with the art of improvisation if you go back in history. So these guys studied music, they learned, they were cultured, but they also were spontaneous, they also were improvisers. And like I said, I couldn't turn my back on classical music, so I got stuck, saddled with all that study. And then once I opened that drawer, I was like, I don't know what the hell this is, but I can't turn, again, I could not walk away from it, you know. You can't walk away from something that's has that much substance. You see what I mean? If I could have, I would have.
I'm wondering, Rick, you mentioned you have written for, I think it was the terrorist attacks. That was the, what was that poem that you need to live up to? I'm really curious.
Well, why don't I recite those words for you? And what I'll do is, yeah, what I do on that is I make up something completely spontaneous. And whenever I recite the words. So your show, whatever I play here, believe me, I'll never be able to play it again because I don't even know what it is yet till I play it. And then I would never be able to repeat it. So it's something unique that'll just be for your show and whatever I do to recite those words. And you'll hear the words that I wrote that I'm, you know, got me in so much hot water now trying to live up to every day. But then again, the rewards are there from trying to live up to things like that. Trying to live up to something noble also has its rewards. So let's give that a try and see what that sounds like. I hear jazz for peace. Coming through the trees. And in my heart it fills me like a celebration. I see the light, and I want to follow. Inspired by the past contributions of those that came before. Laid the groundwork for us to build on. In this universal language that is a gift for all mankind. When we speak it, people are inspired by the creativity. It stands for peace and love and humanity and intelligence. That leads to reaching potential. That we have in our souls. So we can raise our total conscience and see that the gift of giving is our greatest privilege. I hear jazz for peace.
Amazing, amazing. So this has been recognized as the absolute masterpiece, huh? At the time. And you've been trying to live up to this.
Well, I mean, I recognized that the words were something that people do all the time, and that is they talk the talk. You know what I mean? I mean, on every bar stool, right? And on every bar stool in every country is somebody saying something wonderful that they're gonna do, and they may have had enough drinks to even say they're gonna do it, you know. But the next morning when they wake up, do they really do it? You know, how many people go to, you know, churches where fantastic scriptures are spoken, you know, an oratory, and someone gives a great sermon and they go home, but what happens between that Sunday and the next Sunday? How much how much of that do they live up to before they show up again, you know? And some of them even forget that they're even supposed to live up to those words in between Sundays. You know, they think, okay, we'll just say this on Sunday and then we'll say it the next Sunday. You know, and then you've got people that don't even think about it at all. They're completely disconnected from, you know, the words, the talk of the talk. But these words came out of me. They came on a piece of paper. They were purged out of me watching a significant event that affected every person on the planet. Everyone knows about it. I had a firsthand view. So there were just too many things that I couldn't ignore. Again, the inability to ignore, you know, the inability to ignore Johann Sebastian Bach, the inability to then refuse to ignore Charlie Parker or Billie Holiday or those, you know, the same thing happened on 9/11 where it's like, I can't really ignore these words that came out of me and they're my words and I should probably try to live up to them. So trying to live up to those words led to things like a benefit concert series where we help outstanding causes. And I feel like we're redefining peace, if people ever want to pay attention and check it out, you know. So I feel like we're redefining peace, because helping outstanding causes helps everyone within that outreach. You know what I mean? It's taking the baton from peace movements of the past, you know, and taking all of these great contributions from people like Gandhi, and taking all of that big ball of great contribution that all these great people contributed to, a Martin Luther King, etc. There's so many of these names, and then running with that baton. And that leads to the idea of helping those who are helping others, you know, being able to reach all of the people that that outstanding cause reaches by that. It also led to a concert at the United Nations where I brought together Israeli, Palestinian, and American jazz musicians. And that event keeps getting more important as I continue to fail to convince the world that, hey, we need to work on this in an organic way, using something that everyone can relate to, like world-class arts and culture, and the fact that Israelis, Palestinians, and Americans all agree to be on stage and perform together doing so. So, you know, you've got all this common ground, but the more I fail at convincing people, the more relevant I become. You see what I mean? So I'm trying to go the other way. I'd be glad if I just succeeded at my message, and you don't even have to know who I am, but the more I'm ignored, the more relevant this message become in people who, you know, like podcasters like you, who say, hey, you know, this is relevant, I got to get it on my show, whatever. So it's a conundrum. You see what I mean? I'm getting because of this, I'm getting this, you know, I'm getting notoriety because of this. But like I said, I would rather they had just listened to me on September 25th of 2002. That would have made me perfectly happy if they could have just, you know, not even had all this that's happening now.
Yes, sometimes I have the feeling that humanity is not, it's either going backward or basically still in the sandpit if it comes to.
Well, there are solutions. I mean, think about it now. There's 8.4 billion of us, okay? And how many are there of the people that really want these wars and killings? If you even look back in history, it's very few. It's very few, you know. When you go to the American Civil War in our country, okay, you know, when we go back in history, we found out that those guys that wanted that war never fought in it. And they enlisted a bunch of young kids that had no interest in going off and getting killed. No interest whatsoever. So, you know, you've got this situation. We had a poll that we did because we had a solution. We presented it. We presented frequently asked questions, and we asked the people to vote. We asked Israelis to vote, Palestinians to vote, and they voted 96% in favor of our solution.
Tough. This is just nonsense, isn't it? There's a few of us on this planet who is playing board.
Well, I mean, we could ask them to listen to us. See, my latest, if you type into Google Rick DellaRatta famous quote, a quote comes up that's attributed to me from an interview that I did shortly after I recited the poem. I recited that poem you heard. It first got heard in a jazz festival in Savannah, Georgia, for 8,500 people. About 2 weeks after 9/11, right when they opened up the country again, and I was able to fly to this jazz festival, and I recite the poem in the middle of my show. And someone interviewed me, recorded the poem, and if you Google Rick DellaRatta famous quote, you get, something I said off the top of my head. I said, listen, if we just fill our souls up with, you know, humanity and artistry and creativity and intelligence, our greatest qualities, fill up our souls with our greatest qualities rather than our worst qualities, but fill our souls up collectively with our greatest qualities, we'll have a better chance at avoiding the behavior that leads to destruction. Unbeknownst to me, it got lifted, and you know, people see it. I ended up seeing it years later on what I never heard of even the famous website, let alone my quote, you know, and I didn't even know I said it. I had to go back to the article and see, oh, I did say that. So it was the funniest thing. But I have another quote. I don't know if it'll ever become famous, but my quote now is, I think, and I don't even know if I remember, but I should write it down. My quote now is that there are times when we should there are times when the when the oh my goodness when the idea that when the will of the common man, the common people, should be considered. And there are two reasons. One reason is because governments are not always right, and the will of the people is not always wrong. And there's your reason right there why the will of the people should sometimes be considered. And I just wish people would look at the poll we did, look at the vote that was, so extraordinary, look at what we've done since then, and consider the fact that maybe we should look to the will of the people on this.
I love it. And I would love to have maybe a URL, something to that vote, so I can put it under this video recording.
Well, we have one. It's actually that link is called jazzforpeace.org/conflict resolution Q&A.pdf. So a Q and then the and symbol, then the A.pdf.
Wonderful. Have you ever experienced lack of insecurities, a lack of confidence, a lack of self-worth, just out of curiosity?
Well, absolutely. And the reason being is because you're constantly, and I think all of us, now we all have to consider, we're constantly being gaslighted because we think one thing, we feel one thing, and then society is sending us messages that are conflict with that feeling. We're often told, don't do what's in your heart and soul because it's pointless. It's not going to earn money. It's not going to earn enough money for this, or it's not going to do that. And it's not going to, and those things are constantly proven wrong when you look at the bigger picture. And I mean, a perfect example is a lot of artists. I have something now that's like a fractal that I notice, and it's 0 to 1. If you take, there's a bunch of things out there, and if you just take them from 0 to 1, you will see massive change. I mean, let's take the story of Vincent van Gogh. If you want to talk about Austria, right, your region there. So you got Vincent van Gogh. Here's a guy who was completely gaslighted by his society because he even believed in it. He bought into it himself. He couldn't sell a painting, yet his paintings were extremely relevant, extremely important. But, he couldn't sell a painting, and he even believed that he was a failure. Well, if you look at his paintings, the price of one of his paintings now, he wasn't a failure at all. But he believed that he was a failure. Then he even tried to commit suicide. And when it didn't work out, someone went to talk to him, and he said, I even failed at that, before dying a few days later from the wounds that he inflicted. So he succeeded in all these things that he himself thought he failed at. And that's a big part of the problem. Now, to solve that problem, which Jazz for Peace now has solutions, I don't know if anybody wants to hear them, but you can solve this problem, because if you look all the way through life, see, we think we're listening to music all day long. Of course, I'm hearing the greatest music of today. I've got my radio on. I'm in a shopping mall. I hear music everywhere I go. But if you look at historically, these people were heard by 0% of the public in their lifetime. In Vincent van Gogh's lifetime, no one even saw his paintings. His brother was the only person who even bought one. Now go to the other ones. Mozart died in a pine box. Charlie Parker, in here, the jazz greats, died at age 34. Billie Holiday died age 44. And even the ones who were well known, if you look at who really, the amount of people on earth and the amount of people who heard of them during their lifetime, 0%. And the thing is, your message is the most relevant during your lifetime, because that's when your music is made for the world. You know what I mean? The time to hear Chopin was in the 1800s. You know, if I had my choice, when could I listen to him? I'd want to hear him while he was alive, because that's how his music's gonna have the impact. He made it for a world that he was looking at and living in and breathing in. He didn't make it for the world that we're breathing in. He didn't know about our world. You know what I mean? We're able as a derivative to appreciate him. And boy, do I ever, but it's a derivative. It's not right. So what about creating a world where the greatest musicians of today are heard by at least 1% of the world during their lifetime? You know, wouldn't that be great? Right? But if you wanted to do that, you'd have to go from 0 to 1 in other areas. One area would be funding for world peace. I haven't met one person who doesn't agree that funding for war is at 100%, 100. Nobody says 99, 98, 100% for war. And if I ask somebody, what about world peace? How about 0? What if you went from 0 to 1 for funding for world peace, and war you bring down to 99? I'm telling you, it'd be a massive difference. Same thing. That would help people to see the importance of great artists during their lifetime, and maybe we would be able to get enough artists heard that the ones who turn out to be the greats to test of time would get heard by 1% of the world during their lifetime.
Powerful idea. What's driving you now? Like, if, let's say, the next 5 years has been an absolute success, what would need to happen?
You know, in 2022, I performed in Nigeria, and I gave a speech because I was doing improvisations, free jazz improvisations that I took the Z's off the word jazz, and I had free JA, which could stand for Johnny Appleseed, or it could stand for all kinds of things, but it also happened to be the same initials of Julian Assange. And free Julian Assange, I was doing hundreds of them, and I was telling the people why. And if you ever go to that video, you'll see me on stage speaking to the people in Nigeria and saying, if we don't stop persecuting reporters, and if we don't stop shutting down, if we don't give reporters the freedom to do their job and be the professionals that they are, and not persecute them, and, you know, allow them their rights, they have the right to report, and allow those rights, you're going to see a massive amount of innocent civilians dying. That's what I told people. And sure enough, that October was October 7th or whatever, you know what I mean? And you've seen what's happened now. Everywhere we see, what do we see? We see children dying. So I would like people to look at some of the things I have said that have turned out to be right, because no one knows if what I say today is going to be right. We just don't know. But some stuff has proven to be right. Let's take the things that have proven to be right and see if we can, you know what I mean? Like at least get those implemented, and then consider some things I'm saying today and some things that the world is saying today. Like I said, with that vote, let's consider what the will of the people when it comes to some of these things, because children, I'm sorry, they are completely innocent in this matter. There's no little child that decided, hey, I want to cause some trouble here and and I want to cause enough trouble for you to do something like that to me. None. So, we've got to save the child. God bless the child. They're our future.
Absolutely. What do you think? What have I not asked from you that you wanted to share today?
Well, I mean, there's another 0 to 1 I could tell you about. There's a lot of stuff, but another one that would be great. And I've talked to people all over the world on these podcasts, and they all talk about, they've all heard of the term trickle-down economy. You've heard of that, right? Trickle-down economy. And this is some sort of thing, I guess, where, Wall Street gets the money first, or the rich people, somebody gets the money first, and then somehow it trickles, trickles down. And I never I never talked to anybody who's feeling any money trickling down to them, but this is supposed to be something that, you know, we're supposed to embrace this. And, you know, I would just like to suggest for philanthropic purposes, because philanthropy really does get the money last. The people who are really sincere about their mission statement, the people who really want to solve our, you know, problems, they have to go around and get money. They spend most of the time trying to get the money, and there's almost no time left to solve the problem when they finally got enough money to even try. So a trickle-up economy could work with a trickle-down economy. You don't have to eliminate anybody. You don't have to do anything. And it could balance our system, because we have a very unbalanced system, you know? I mean, I like the term, there's a method to your madness, but our system has more madness than method. And I'd like to get some method in there. And one way would be a trickle-up economy for philanthropic purposes. It would be a way in which people that have a track record of actually doing what they say they're going to do get the funding first. And as they spend that into the economy to achieve their goal, whatever it may be on their mission statement, the funds trickle up instead of down. And it can run alongside the trickle-down economy to balance out all of the problems that only a trickle-down economy creates.
Wow, I love that logic, and it's an upside down, and I love turning things upside down, which don't work, obviously.
Well, a lot of things are backwards, and a lot of things, I think it's called the fourth turning that we're in. These people that are study these, they study these patterns, you know, and they say it's the fourth turning that we're in now, and things get completely upside down. You know, you see hypocrisy at unimaginable levels, you know, now when you look at the news and stuff, and to fix it, you would go like this. So a trickle up economy is really just adding that which is completely missing from our trickle down system, and it fills it in. It adds that which is missing, and which is going to continue to be missing until we, you know, resolve it.
Yeah, and I hope in our lifetime there will be major changes in, for example, medicine and how it's practiced today, and also trickling money into building resources for people who are living in poverty, because obviously there's so much money for weapons of mass destruction rather than.
Well, and you saw what's happening in the United States news with this this healthcare provider who got assassinated. I don't know if you got that news out there, but there's it's called United Health. It's a big insurance company, and right down the street from me, somebody just blew his brains out. And then when they looked into it, this health insurance company, by the way, they were known for denying legitimate claims, and they were very well known for people going to the doctor with a problem, the doctor telling them, listen, don't worry, you're going to be covered for this. This is a problem you have. You're going to be covered because it fits under your insurance as a necessary procedure. So don't worry. The person goes home, contacts this company that's a massive insurance. So many millions of people are under that insurance. They contact them and say, hey, my doctor told me blah, blah, blah. And then they would say, yeah, no problem. They've no problem. Blah, blah. And then 2 weeks later, they'd get a letter denied. And this guy was the head of it. He was head denier. Okay. The top dog in the deny world. They found, after he was killed now a couple days ago, word came out that $10 million a year was his base salary. In other words, it was only part of his package. So he's getting $10 million just as that's like not even with the bonuses and incentives. So God only knows how many millions this guy's making. And he's to run a health company that's denying everybody across the board. I mean, something like massive majority of claims being denied that under their policy they say are supposed to be allowed. He's getting them denied and getting his salaries going up the more he denies. And He's under investigation for insider trading. So even all that money wasn't enough. He's still got to rig the stock market. So you see what I mean? Something's very disconnected here. And we can fix it by considering some of these ideas, especially ideas that are proven to be true. Because what Jazz Piece does, a lot of our implementations stop problems in the future. And what we tried to do with Israeli Palestinians and Americans at the United Nations in 2002 was to stop a problem in the future that we see now has escalated.
Well, Rick, it's been a pleasure. It's been amazing interview with you, and I would love to talk for hours. But you're getting to the end. What would be the last golden nuggets that you wanted to share?
If I was to share one more, I've been sharing this lately, and I came up with another one, but I've kind of forgot it. It was like last night or something. All of a sudden, another one came in, and I thought I should tell people that. But one is a word called perspective, because a lot of times we do not put things in a healthy perspective. And again, that's because of the subliminal messages and all those kinds of things. And a client scientist taught me this, and he had gotten it from a parable that was over 2,000 years old. And it's a story of, it's called The Old Man and His Horse. It may have come from like some dynasty in China or something, but thousands of years ago, and it resonates today. So this guy's an old man. He's got a horse. One day, the horse takes off on him. Just takes off, goes its own, and just gone. His neighbor comes over and says, "Hey, old man, I just want to come over and just say I'm so sorry for the bad news about your horse." The old man looks at him and says, "Who knows what is good news and what is bad?" So the person says, "Okay, well, I like the way you're rolling with this bad news, but you know, I just want to say that, and then I'll see you. I'll be back another day. I'll check in on you, whatever. See you tomorrow." A few days later, the horse comes back. 6, 7 days later, whatever. Horse comes back, but with 3 more horses. So now he's got 4 horses instead of 1. Neighbor shows up and says, "Hey, old man, I got to congratulate you on the amazing, fantastic news about your 4 horses." Guy looks at him. "Who knows what is good news and what is bad?" I said, "Well, okay, but you know, I just look like good news to me, so whatever." He goes back. Now his son gets on one of the horses. The horse throws him off, smashes him into a wall, you know, keeping the horse, smashes him, breaks his leg in 2 or 3 places. He's emergency situation. You know, they don't have painkillers in them days. They're trying Chinese medicine, whatever. He's in a disastrous situation. The neighbor comes over. "Old man, I'm really, really sorry. I mean, the badness is horrific about yourself." Old man looks at him one more time. "Who knows what is good news and what is bad?" The guy's like, "Okay, this guy's a little nuts. I'm not gonna tell him he's nuts, but I'm gonna kind of just sidestep my way out of this," and shakes his head, and oh my God, this poor guy. Anyway, 4 days later, the government knocks on his door. He says, "What can I do?" They said, "Well, the war has started. We've got to take every young man's got to go to the war. Mandatory. I'm so sorry, but we've got to take your son." "Well, there he is over here." "Oh my God, we can't take we're going to take everybody else's son, but we just can't take yours. His leg is broken. Can't even walk. I don't even know if he'll ever walk. I mean, this is awful." Gone. All those kids die in the war. His son lives because of the horrifically bad news of what happened on that horse. It saves his life. So my point is, you know, try to consider the possibility that bad news isn't always good, and bad news isn't always bad, and good news isn't always good, and sometimes bad news is good.
Rick, thank you very much. It was an honor to have you, and I wish you best of luck with your wonderful message and making an impact in the world.
Thank you so much, Andre. It's been a pleasure.